Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/entitled people. In today's episode, I just got disowned lol. I need advice on how to survive. I can understand how generational abuse starts, but I can't understand this. Mother does her best to ensure I never have the confidence to move out and be my own person. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I just got disowned lol. I need advice on how to survive. I, 17F, turning 18 in few months, just had a huge argument with my mom, at 57. I live in Malaysia and my parents religiously hate everyone that surrounds me in my life. They're Muslims, I'm not allowed to have any friends, people to be close with, and etc. I bit my tongue and lived like this until now without anyone to turn to. So yesterday, I went to the gym at my place and came home after spending 4 hours there. My dad called and I told him that I was in the gym and he hung up on me. Fast forward, my dad came back home with my mom and they both started shouting at me for going out with my boyfriend. I'm not even allowed to have friends, so what made them think that I even have a boyfriend? I told them I was at the gym the whole time and my dad said that he didn't see me there, so he made that conclusion. We went back and forth and I got tired, so I just left them there. The next morning my mom warned me to stop lying and going out with friends. I acted like I was deaf and continued sleeping until she comes back from work. She then started shouting at me for sleeping lol. And we just argued of the fact that I'm sick of her and my dad's abuse and how she's so toxic, controlling, and hits me for no reason. P.S. She tried to kill me with a knife when I was 8. She then declared that I'm no longer her daughter and she's no longer my mother and made sure everyone heard it loud and clear. I told my cousins and they willingly want to take me in because they've been through the same thing as I did. But the difference is, they went back to their parents. I don't want to anymore. I don't want to live in a cage no longer. The only problem I have is how do I get money for college? I need to go to college so I can have a proper career. Anyone have any idea on how can I generate my own income? I just graduated high school and still waiting for my SPM result. Could try a trade? Get an apprenticeship or something, run your trade for a few years, pick something like electrician if you want money, but there's a lot of choice. Then, by mid-20s you'll have a decent career, but enough money in youth to transition. Plus your parents will be totally behind you when you decide what you want out of life. As a bonus, you'll have a permanent grab bag. For done it before. You just set off in the van, sleep in the van, make money with the van. You can never fall below that point, and it's a point with an income and structure, so it is easy to recover from compared to homeless-o and penniless. Plus everyone will put you up for a few days in exchange for a few little jobs, or running some furniture around in your van. I miss my van. I know some companies in the States have a tuition repayment system, maybe various companies by you offer something similar? For example, in my early 20s I worked at a hardware store. They offered to pay back a certain percentage of your tuition so long as you maintained a GPA in a course of study they could use you for, i.e. construction management, business administration, etc. Sorry what you have to go through. I'm sure all the people answering you right now went through something like this. First and foremost, how much money you have in the meantime. Second, find a place you can footing back. Third, slowly work towards your goals and on yourself. Hospitality part-time job, that's what I did. Totally worth it. I can understand how generational abuse starts, but I can't understand this. My mom knew how abusive her family was, yet sent me to stay with them for long periods from a very young age. How do you convince yourself that the people who abused you won't abuse your kids? Is this a learned behavior? A trauma response? Just plain bad thinking? I cannot comprehend it. She knew what happened in that house, she grew up in it, and she sent me to stay there and forced me to keep going there every year. I was subjected to the same shades of abuse that she was. I became a parent and I have no desire to leave my child alone with anyone except well-vetted and trusted people who definitely do not have any history of abusive behavior. It will be hard for me to let them do sleepovers when the time comes, but I'm working on that. I just don't trust anyone. How could she have trusted them when she knew better? Does anyone else have any experience or perspective? The only thing I can think of is maybe the abuse has been so normalized that she didn't think of it as abuse anymore? Cognitive dissonance? The cognitive dissonance is definitely a factor. The other, unfortunately, is that she knew, and she valued her free time more than your well-being. She was selfish. She is selfish. I'm sorry for what you went through, but she knew what was likely and did it anyway because her time without her child was more important to her. In my parents' case, it's pretty obvious that they didn't want me to have it any easier than they did. I think it's kind of like life is a competition for them, and because they have nothing to brag about, they chose to try to keep others down instead of lift themselves and others up. I remember telling my mom something like, "Don't you want me to have it better than you did?" Incredulous at how she kept putting me in bad situations. I remember distinctly that she said no and then went on one of her tirades about how I was too soft. Those 11-year-olds. Too soft, gotta make 'em suffer. My incubator knew her husband was molesting me. She got a house out of it. I've been wrestling with my own story, child endangerment, as well. 2 years ago, my mother told me that even before I was born, she knew my sperm donor was involved in criminal activity and was an alcoholic. And yet, when I was 13 and clearly effeminate, she brought that bastard back into my life. When I was 14, she moved us in with him. I dealt with so much physical, emotional, and verbal abuse. Now I'm doing what she should have done by not having children and ending the bloodline. My grandma was abusive or manipulative, those two adjectives go together. When she wanted something, she went to bed and started yelling that you were killing her but not complying, that she needed to be sent to hospital, and so on. Doctors already knew her and her tricks. She guilt-tripped you. My mom, however, took her to live with us. She knew what she was like. Free time? No. She wanted to work. She valued more having her own money than keeping us safe. Mother does her best to ensure I never have the confidence to move out and be my own person. To say my mother is a nutcase would be an understatement. She's a bat bipolar wackadoo who has the world's longest medication list of narcotics. Growing up, nothing I, 27F, ever did was good enough. I would be punished just for sitting on the couch wrong. Here's a summarized list of things she did. When I was 7, one of her rings fell down the kitchen sink drain and she blamed me because I was taking a shower at the same time. She beat with a hairbrush and took my bed away, claiming had to earn the right to have a bed. I slept on the floor in the living room until I was 18. On my 8th birthday, she got mad that I showered without being told, so she dragged me by my hair back into the shower and threw me in. Next thing I know, I'm waking up with her holding a belt ready to beat me because I fell asleep in the shower. At 9, she threw away what little clothes I had because I was getting too fat. She went out and bought clothes that were way too small for me to properly wear to encourage me to lose weight. She also locked up the fridge and cabinets. This went on until I was 16 and she gave up. At 11, I got seriously ill while at school, and instead of taking me to a doctor, she brought me and yelled that I got the flu on purpose because I was too stupid to learn. She grabbed my brother's golf club and beat me until I was covered in bruises. At 12, she began waking me up in the middle of the night to make me clean the house. I'd clean and she would destroy it, all my hard work, saying it was because I missed her spot. At 14/15, the beatings stopped for a bit due to her being in a near-fatal car accident, broken spine, and brain injury. By this point, I had become completely dependent on her and thought that my life was normal. After a meltdown at my granny's house, my cousins took me aside and laid it all out for that what I was going through was abuse, and he was sorry no one tried to stop it. They were so afraid she would kill me if they intervened. 6 months after the accident, I went back home to live with her. I became her primary caretaker, booking her appointments, giving her baths, etc. Despite her injuries, she was still capable of causing me great harm. But by this point, I knew better and did my best to defend myself. But due to years of being belittled and a human punching bag, I had a hard time sticking up for myself. I would tell people what was happening, but no one would believe because of how frail she looked. At 17, I dislocated my knee while playing street hockey and needed to go to the hospital. She told the coaches and referees that she would drive me. By this point, she had regained the ability to drive. They all trusted her to do so. Nope, she took me home and beat me for making excuses not to play. Since winter break started the same day as the game, no one at the school wouldn't notice that she lied. She took away my phone to keep me calling for help. I spent most of winter break barely able to move and in pain. The day after Christmas, I managed to get a hold of my phone while she was passed out and call a family friend for help. He took me to the hospital where they fixed my knee up and kept me overnight for observation because of how long I had to wait for treatment. I told them about my mother and what she did, but they knew her and said I was lying and attention seeking. When I got home, my mother was still passed out. When she came to, she didn't even notice that I had a knee brace on or using crutches to get around. I ended up benched for the rest of hockey season. My knee is still messed up to this day due to the damage caused by being forced to wait. That same school year, she burned all my identification records, birth certificate, state ID, and SS card because she wanted to make sure I stayed with her forever. When I was 18, I was done with abuse. I was done trying to get people to listen to me. I was fighting a losing battle. I figured no one would miss me, so I made a plan to end it all. I decided to spend my last day in the one place I felt safe, the library. Thankfully, I met someone that day that gave me hope and strength to keep going. Because of him, I was able to find the courage to run. On my last day living with my mother, she beat me to the point she drew blood and broke my ribs. She was in such a rage I feared for my life. I managed to secretly record the audio of what happened. When she finally stopped and left me alone, I managed to get up, grab my phone and run to my neighbor's house. The police and ambulance were called. I played the recording, but they all looked at her and deemed it was a fake recording. The officer threatened to arrest me if called the cops again under false pretenses. The paramedics begrudgingly took me to the hospital to get stitched up and x-rayed, but the ride was filled with accusatory looks and a lecture on how I'm a horrible daughter. After being released, I took a bus home, grabbed what I could while she wasn't there and left. I lived on the streets for a bit while still going to school, determined to finish up my senior year. Thankfully, the guy I had met at the library and his family took me in when they realized what had happened. I finally had people who believed me and took actual care of me. They made sure I had a real bed and a real room to sleep in. They helped me get new copies of my birth certificate and SS card so I could get a new ID. My mother to this day refuses to admit to what she did. She'll tell people I was a troubled and angry child who purposely hurt myself to get her in trouble. She'll claim she couldn't find a better way to get me to behave. I still have a lot of trauma to work through, but I am more or less my own person. I have a steady-ish job and I pay bills. I married the guy from the library and gave birth to our child. I see a therapist every few weeks to work on bettering myself. And I'm determined to never end up like her. I will also not remain silent about my childhood. I will make sure people hear me. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.